in a leadership role, Tanya, and maybe Jeanette, you're best to answer this. How do I detect burnout in others? What am I looking for in those I'm leading to say, I think Audrey's close to burnout here?
That's I think a key question for those of us in leadership and or managerial roles. And typically one of the things you see is people are missing deadlines, they're missing work, they're coming late to work, they're irritable with others, they can't seem to get tasks accomplished. And sometimes they're demonstrating other emotional signals, such as becoming tearful about something that seems inconsequential. You know, they drop a box of paper and it's all over the place. They didn't break a crystal ball. They dropped a ream of paper and it's everywhere, and they just fall apart. And that's when you start recognizing that there's something going on there. And I think that many times as leaders or managers, we say, well, I guess I just need to pay them more money, but I don't have any more money. Or they say that they just need more help, but I actually don't have the capacity to hire somebody for them at that time. And those are the things that I've heard again and again that say, I'm a leader, I'm a manager, but I don't have the tools to fix this for them. And what the data have shown actually is it's rarely money alone, or even money as the most important thing to solve someone's burnout problems. What it is something, and there are things that are in your own control. It's like starting the day with, hey, how are you? Looks like it's been a rough night. Showing that you are empathic to what's going on and you are prepared to listen. That's more responsibility for you as a leader, but it makes a big difference when you're working with a group. Sometimes it's, do you need a half day? Do you want to come in at noon tomorrow? For many people, especially the person who's not sleeping well, sometimes they're falling asleep at 4 o'clock in the morning, and to have to get up an hour and a half later or so just beats them up. And you giving them that extra half day is within your power as a leader manager. You can do that. Sometimes it's, do you need an extra couple days for your deadline? Or do you want to float your outline to me and let me review it, and then I can confirm that you're on the right track? Because so often a person who's in the midst of burnout actually doesn't see what they're doing well. So if you can help them see, you know, you actually are accomplishing some things, you have helped to address many of the different aspects of burnout. Because when you see that burnout hierarchy, it comes in multiple levels and influences a lot of aspects of your work environment.
Jeanette, let me just tag on one of the things you said, because I've seen this. And when I, as a leader, am going through lots of change, a mistake I see leaders make is their whole day is consumed with meetings. I'm going from meeting to meeting to meeting, and I'm not really paying enough attention to the folks in my group because I'm so consumed with that. I'll tell you what the research shows, and it's an amazing finding, but in high stress situations, people say, I get relief from the tension, just seeing my manager, just having a conversation. And so there's something about being present with the team. They can see you, they can talk to Jeanette's point. Hi, how are you doing? It lowers the stress. And perhaps it's a feeling that my manager is in here with me. I don't know. But my advice is, whatever you do, don't isolate yourself from the group. Don't take every meeting that you're asked. Make sure that you have time to interact.
You know, just to build on that, so often they've said we should have an open door policy. And I used to say, no, I need some time. And then when I realized, you can say, I need an hour. I'm going to close my door for an hour, or I need this 2 hours, but then you open the door. So there are ways that you can actually protect yourself while not being totally open to everything.
Yes.
And, you know, let me also add some things that I've done in particularly for staff that have reported to me over the years, just to add into the mix. And one of the things is that I routinely in my meetings, particularly with my direct reports, is I bake in time for feedback and also for them to voice. And so they get into a habit of me asking, not just about tasks, but about work, about how things are going. There's always a point in every meeting where there's a period of time where I give permission for them to we talk about employee voice, and to sort of raise concerns or sort of issues. And it does two things. It lets them know that if there's ever a higher stress point, there's an opening for them to be able to have that conversation. And it also gives me an opportunity to just sort of hear. But the other thing that I did a lot, and that I do a lot, is that I make sure that I save time for celebration. So when there are milestones, when there are accomplishments, when there are things that we've pressed through, when we get through tough times. You know, they used to tease me that I am the queen of throwing, a party, and it's just something like coffee and donuts in the morning, or to be able to say, yes, we're going to have a retreat, and then as soon as it's done, you're going to leave 2 hours early. But it's an opportunity to both not only decompress, but to be recognized and to have a marker of an accomplishment. Because too often we go from crisis to crisis to crisis to crisis, and if we as leaders don't stop and mark the accomplishment and allow people to not only decompress, but to celebrate the fact that we move through. And then the only other thing is that to pay really close attention to the cycle of work. A consulting project that I was on really taught me this very well several decades ago, that they know when their pressure points are in terms of production cycle and work cycle. And so they launch no new initiatives, they do no grand things, they add nothing new during that cycle. And so one of the things that particularly in higher ed, there's certain pressure points that we have. I always tell people beginning and end in higher ed is always crazy. So no new things, no added things, really paying attention to the natural life cycle in your organization, in your unit, becomes really important, because staff are so busy, or people who work with you are so busy doing the work that they're really not necessarily paying attention to the pace and the flow until they crash. But I'm really keen about not adding things at key pressure points for that reason.
And Audrey, I would just say on the celebration aspect, research on teams shows that if your team is going from project to project to project, that you're really setting them up for burnout. If you don't take time to celebrate and acknowledge, you're really setting the stage for the team to burn out. So that's a key point.
And that's especially true in times where people are going through such incredible stress externally. So that doesn't stop when they come through, the work door, or when they sign on virtually through Teams. And we can celebrate virtually, we can do that as well, even in this strange environment. But that's important. It's not just making nice, it's recognition, it's decompression, and it's also validation.
Tanya, did you have a comment?
I think Audrey had said it as it related to what Jeanette said, but I would say as leaders, again, you model what you want your staff, your colleagues to do, and self-care has got to be important part of that. And you're going to have to really understand, again, how to prevent chronic stress, how to prevent burnout, how to prevent fatigue, but also intervening when you notice that something's going on and being intentional, being able to say no, setting boundaries, and again, going back and telling yourself that it's not bad to say no. It's not bad to shut my door for an hour. It's not bad to take care of myself, because now you are modeling this for those that you are working with. So it's just, again, if you don't take care of you, who will? And so you have to put time in your day for you to prevent that burnout as a leader.
All right, good. I've got one more question for the panelists, but I just want to stop a bit. Do we have anything in the chat, or does anybody want to ask a question? Let me give you a few minutes. Anything somebody would like to ask before we go on to our last discussion? Going once. Going twice. Okay.
You can even make it simple, like talk a little bit about. Sometimes we think it has to be a well-formed question. It can be something like that. Yes. Feel free to put something in the chat or to ask verbally.
Right.
Okay.
Anything? Okay. So we've touched on this a bit, but our last question is just any advice you would give for just staying physically and emotionally healthy despite the circumstances of life? Anything that we haven't talked about that is really important for physical and emotional health?
You know, I would say that one of the biggest challenges, and it's specifically, especially true about women, is we're so busy taking care for other members of the family. It may be our children, it may be our parents, it may be siblings, cousins. I think now of folks in my sphere and the struggles they're having taking care of different family members. And what happens is then we don't take care of ourselves. And one thing it's something simple. I got a notice in the mail, time for your annual mammogram. And I put it on the desk. And I thought to myself, it's been on the desk for 2 weeks, and I'm doing exactly what I would have told my patients not to do. Don't set aside what you should be doing for yourself. Prioritize. You wouldn't do that if it was on your mother's desk and your mom said, I just got this thing in the mail. You would have had it done that day. You would have had it done that day. And so I thought the first thing is to recognize that your well-being, getting your eyes examined, getting the simple things that are normal prevention measures, do those things and write them down on your to-do list for the day. May not happen today, but then it should happen tomorrow. So to make sure you get that done, I think that's important. And then the other thing is again, building on my theme, prevention, the things that will be better for you. Rather than say, I don't really want to spend time cooking dinner, I'm just going to have pizza tonight and tomorrow night and the night after that. And all of those things that we do because they're easy, and yet we know in our hearts of hearts, they're not, and you're not going to feel as good if you have a diet of pizza every day of the week, So recognizing that our diets, our exercise routines, our sleep routines, that as Audrey brought up earlier, the types of things we fit into our schedule, those things are critical to how we feel. And we have to put them down as important.
So that means I'm not ordering pizza tonight. Is that what you're telling me tonight?
Oh gosh.
Yeah,
I won't tell anybody. Tomorrow is okay though.
Yeah. Okay. One thing, just building off what Jeanette said, and sometimes this is a bit counterintuitive, but that is if there are goals for me physically or emotionally that are really going to make me more fit, feeling better, taking some action. Often in the high stress situations, that's the time to set them. It's interesting because it gives me a feeling of control. Often we're more stressed because I feel I'm out of control. I'm just at the whim of what's happening. But if I say, you know what, if I lose 10 pounds, if I start walking every day, if I do whatever, that is going to make a difference. And beginning to focus on specific improvements can help me deal with the stress better, because I'm not just reacting, I'm taking some action, I'm doing something purposeful. So that is one of my suggestions.
I get teased a lot by my friends and colleagues. I'm the queen of lists, right? I have lists about everything. Actually, early on in my career, I had a list of this is what I'm going to accomplish by the time I'm 25, by the time I'm 30. I had those lists. I gave them up before I got to 30. They just went out. But I still make them. And they play a role. But I think one of the things that I've learned is to pay attention to and to value and to be okay with positive progress and not perfection, right? That positive progress is really the goal, whether or not that's in, okay, I didn't walk 5 miles today, I walked 1. I didn't finish the 18 things that were on my list, but I finished 5. I didn't do that thing that was supposed to do that week. And I think it goes back to Tanya's point about giving yourself grace, but it's also paying attention to some realistic expectations about what you can and cannot do, particularly in these times where it takes so much extra effort. to do normal things like going to the grocery store. I had to go to the bank this morning and it took 5 extra steps because of the crazy environment that we're in that's necessary to keep everybody safe. And so pay attention to positive progress. That's the goal. And when you lay your head down at night, focus on the positive progress, not perfection.
I really like, Vivette, you talked about taking action. Audrey, you just talked about values. One of my favorite books, Vision, Values, and Courage, Leadership for Quality Management. It says that leaders bring to the table vision, strongly held values and beliefs, and take action. So that's not only in the organization, but that's also personally. What is your vision for yourself in terms of your own health and wellness? What is your vision for the relationships you have with your family, your friends, community organizations? So really talking about what the vision is, what are your values, and are you taking action to live out your values as it relates to your health and wellness? And I've just been saying this lately more and more, is that tomorrow's not promised. So what are you doing for yourself personally that's going to influence your important relationships in your life so that you can be present physically and emotional with the people you care for?
Tanya,
I agree.
let me just add to that, because so often I work with people around what is your vision, and so many times people start it in with their careers. This is what I want to achieve, and of course, careers happen within the context of our life. And so my vision needs to be broader. It needs to be about everything in my life. What do I, by the end of my life, what do I want to have, you know, in my relationships, in my finances, in my health, and in my career? So it needs to be a holistic vision to really be satisfying. I've worked with people who have had visions that were principally centered on the career, and they felt good about it, but it wasn't really as satisfying because all of their life didn't really go as they would have liked. But they didn't start with vision. They started with, you know, have a great career. And that's not enough. Jeanette.
You know, I think what I'm about to say complements what Vivette just said, and that is that we are living in a society that is asking us to check boxes that are external metrics that are all related to things that are almost always not values driven. They are having a terminal degree driven, they are income earning potential driven, they are related to where you might live, that sort of thing. And it reminds me of a wonderful modern parable that I read in a book called The Life God Blesses by Gordon MacDonald. And I've used this modern parable so often because it talks about the man who was a member of a yacht club. Now, I have no idea what it means to be a member of a yacht club, but I know it means you had a lot of money and you're in a certain segment of society, okay? But anyway, there everybody used to just talk about the different boats that they had made. And he decided to build this yacht. And he focused on all of the things above the waterline. You know, the amount of brass fixtures there, how the type of wood that was in the cabin, you know, how well it looked when it was sitting in the water. And it was a sailboat. It was a yacht that was designed to sail. And everything that was immediately visible to those around, he spent a lot of time with. But he didn't spend much time on what was below the waterline. And so they had the big day when the yacht was done and they got ready to launch it out to sea. The sun was shining, the bay looked good. All his buddies got out there with their boats and they were sort of sending him off there, and they broke champagne over the bow, and it was just wonderful. And he went out to sea, and then the storm arose. And everybody else had since turned back because they had other things. They were just there to celebrate. And a storm arose and the waters got choppy. And it wasn't the worst storm that had ever been there. It was a storm that usually he could manage, but he hadn't paid attention to what was below the waterline. And so when the waves got really bad and the storm got really bad and his yacht tipped over, because he didn't have weight below the waterline, he couldn't get it to right back again. And it reminds me so much of the fact that the things that stabilize us in storms are that spiritual strength, those characteristics and those practices and those beliefs and values that we hold dear to ourselves and we nourish on a daily basis, that strengthens us when things aren't going well, when we're in challenging times. So we can't avoid spending time doing that, not just getting the degrees, not just getting the increasing the income and that sort of thing, but making sure that we're nourished ourselves by those divine principles that anchor us on a daily basis.
Very good.
Absolutely.
Any other comments? We're getting to about 5 minutes. I just want to throw it open one more time. Any questions from our participants, our guests?
And or any other topics that you might want us to share with you in future webinars, because our goal is to really try to meet the needs of those of us who are responsible for others. We're leading others both at home and in our workplace, and so that we can prepare for what would meet your needs. Feel free to enter it in the chat if you don't want to talk, but also unmute and tell us what you think.
Yes.
Tell us what you think, what questions you have, but also anything that stood out that you heard today.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Kathy.
Oh, hi. How you doing? No, I just wanted to say it's been a wonderful seminar. I've enjoyed all of the speakers, very encouraging. So I do appreciate your time and expertise. Again, thank you. And I thank Jeanette for letting me know about it. But I look forward to more. So thank you very much, all of you.
So we do have a comment from Rena.
Kathy.
How do you keep others from imposing their stress on you? Great question. How do you keep others from imposing their stress on you?
I think that goes back to what Audrey and I both talked about, is knowing your triggers and knowing that if somebody else is stressed, that they could be a trigger for you. And so setting up some boundaries. I always talk about having your steel armor on and not letting other people's stress infuse into your being and your system. So really understanding how other people's stress can impact you and having some boundaries, and really, saying to the other person, it sounds like you may be, what are you doing to manage? Again, so just modeling how to manage the stress as well, but knowing that it's a trigger for you, and being intentional with it, not letting it seep into your being.
One of the things that I have found is that so often these may be folks to whom you report. They are not your peers. They are folks who are your supervisors sometimes. And what I have found is that there are times when they're saying, we want you to do this, or it's important to do this, or go this direction, for you to say, I'd like some time to think about that. Because there's a certain group of people who will not be challenged and take it lightly. And so what I will do is I'll say, rather, knowing that they're the one who are being almost bullying, but so I not being able to bully back, but saying, I think it's important for me to gather some more information before we agree to go forward in that direction. And I can bring that back to you at a later date. And or this is something that I think is so charged at the moment that I need to talk to some other folks, or I will put it aside. I've actually had people call my staff names in a meeting, and I was so incensed. And I said, I can't let it go, but I also can't react. And my response was, I found that comment offensive, but there are so many important things we need to discuss today. I'm going to set it aside because I don't think this is the appropriate form to react. And it never happened again. That from that time on, that person was much easier to work with. But I realized if I exploded, which is what I wanted to do, it would not be productive. So sometimes we recognize what's happening, and yet we have to respond in a fashion that is bigger than them.
Yeah.
I hope that addressed it, Renee.
Yeah, Tanya, let me go back to something you said about, other people giving us stress. And that is, though I may have advice for people or want to talk with them, I find sometimes people, in sharing their stress, they want you to solve the problem. And I think what's important is individuals need to manage their own stress and they need to be responsible for it. So I don't want to be in a situation where I'm taking on their stress, trying to solve the problem, trying to make it work, counsel others, encourage others. You're in a stressful situation. Here are some things you might do, but then I leave it there. I don't take it on myself, because otherwise, first of all, it's not good for the other person, and I'm just adding to the stress that I have in my life. All right, let's wrap up. Thank you so much for coming today. Our next webinar will be March 16th, and we're going to talk about beyond perfection to resilience. We touched on that just a little bit today, but that will be the topic. If you want to know more about us, we have a website, southpawconsultants.com. Our work really spans helping people manage their leadership strengths, coaching, mentoring, counseling, people that are in life or career transitions. We work in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and then also working with teams. You will get from us a one-page handout that summarizes some of the points that we made in this session. So, and Tani just put in the chat our website. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the comments, and hope to
Have a
see
great
you
day.
in March.
And
That's
one
right.
more thing,
Awesome.
if you're on Facebook, please like our Facebook page. It's Southpaw Consultants as well, because we will be posting information on our Facebook page as well.
And LinkedIn, and we're on LinkedIn as well.
Great. All
Great.
right.
Thank you all.
Thanks,
Take care.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye now.